Cisco and HashiCorp's Terraform series. Infrastructure as code, focusing on day 0 and day 1 deployments. This is pulling it all together. It's going to get fun here. We've got a virtual instance of Firepower that's currently deployed, but we're going to dynamically create a web server on the fly, everything from start to finish, apply the right port groups, configure it to have a web service running, pull some data down, SSH enabled, Firepower. Then we're going to move to create objects that we need for policy to access the web or SSH, or vice versa, going outbound from the DMZ server to get an update from a repository for Ubuntu. You've got all these objects, and then we're going to use those in that access control policy where we've got DMZ zones, outside zones. We've got objects that we're using. You've got destination ports of SSH, HTTP, HTTPS. You've got DNS over UDP. You've got all those URLs that we've created. Wow. And then we've got a default policy of block. We've got IPS policies being applied. We've got logging enabled. And then we move into NAT policy, where we build out a NAT policy to translate that DMZ server out to an external IP address so we can access it, and then allow anything on the DMZ net to get to the internet from a NAT perspective. This is part 2, the push. All right, we're going to run that script. That script, remember, is going to run the first part of Terraform, which is all the Firepower stuff. And then it'll pause for 10 minutes. We're not going to wait for the whole 10, of course. And then it'll jump in and do the web or the ESXi portion of the configuration. So what we'll do is we're going to run this first portion. You can see it's already going. All the objects are being created as we speak right now. You can see in the background there's no access control policy that's named the access control policy that we're creating. We'll show you that in a second. But it's going ahead and doing this work. Once this is complete, we're going to go ahead and validate. This is also going to start the process once the deployment is finished. And I, again, extended it 10 minutes just in case if there's any issues or network problems, or in my case, Intel NUC wants to be slow. I've got lots of time. And honestly, this provisions everything. It's incredible. My lab's up, it's running. I've got everything. 10-minute delay here, but Firepower's all set up and ready to go, and we're actually pushing policy now. That's how quick it is. Let's have a check. Deployment, it's collecting policies and objects. That's all the objects we talked about in the previous video, all the access control policy and all the rules, the NAT policy. Let's refresh and have a quick peek at some of the stuff. So look at that. There's our T_dynamic lab 1. We can see there's one targeted device. It's out of date because it's currently pushing policy. And check it out. There's the rules that we showed at the very beginning. Pushed, deployed, ready to go almost, right? It's just got to wait for that policy to be pushed. And there's that NAT policy created again, out of date. Why? Because that policy is being pushed as we speak to the device, and there's our NAT policy. We'll just jump to object management just to ensure that everything's there, but you can see that they were referenced, and here they are. Umbrella, my internal, external IPs from my web server, my DMZ network, and there's my URLs that I've used in policy as well. Just to give you an idea of some of the possibilities. Now, standing up a lab to do some quick testing, this is pretty neat, right? I can very quickly test a vulnerable system and determine whether or not an IPS signature is enabled. And here we are. We're starting the deployment of the VM. I've got my cloud config data there that's going to provision as well once the server comes up. But now the web server has started. So obviously I fast forward. I didn't wait the entire 10 minutes because the video is less than 10. It's around 5 or 6, I think. But anyways, there it is. It's starting to deploy. It's taking that OVF. It's building the parameters, the spec that we've outlined in that config file. And it's about to come up. Now it's being powered on. Once it powers on, cloud config is going to do and all the specifics that we've told it to do. So it's going to pull my web page or the YouTube page of my channel. It's going to use that as the index.html. My IP address internally is 192.168.66.100, but my external, if NAT is working, is 255.10. Check that out. I'm SSHing right into the box, and there we are. All dynamically created, all based on code. And there's the IP address of that box, and I refresh the web page going to 255.10, the NATed IP address, and there's the channel. It's not the YouTube, it's what I pulled from YouTube and then inserted it as index.html. So really, really cool. Let's check the connection events to see a little bit of what's happening there. Now, the nice thing about this is you might need to tweak a few rules. So one thing I noticed here is that NTP was trying to get out. I don't have a rule for NTP. Now, do I care in the lab? Probably not. But if you were going to do this in a production environment, then you probably would care. So let's do some filtering. We're going to do it on DMZ zone, and let's do it based on initiator responder IP, and we'll take that internal IP of 66.100. That's my DMZ. That's that web server that we've created. And here's the output of that filtered. And again, you can see some blocks that are taking place. You can see here there's 255.100, so that's the node that I managed the infrastructure with, making a connection to the website. And we did that, right? And that wasn't allowed, but you can see down here at the bottom there's a block. So I might want to modify my policy, again, based on needs. But that's it.